Hello, and welcome to another Sitecore Stories. Today I'm catching up with Christian Hahn, and he's going to be telling us all about the Angular SDK. So, let's dive in. Okay, thanks for joining me today, Christian.
Thank you for having me.
I know you've been on one of these videos before, but for anyone who hasn't seen that, can you give us a quick introduction to yourself and your role here at Sitecore?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Christian Hahn. I'm technical product manager here at Sitecore, and I'm mainly responsible for the developer experience in XM Cloud. And in that role, I am the product manager nowadays of Cloud SDK and JSS SDK. And I guess that's exactly the reason why I'm here, because we have a recent change or an extension to our JSS SDK.
Yeah, nice. I know we're going to talk a little bit about the Angular SDK, but before we dive into that, can you talk a little bit about why we actually built an SDK out for Angular?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I mean, basically, it comes down to imagine a customer buys XM Cloud. What we don't want to do is we don't want to limit our customers, and also not to limit our customers to specific frameworks. So if they buy XM Cloud, we want them to get the maximal flexibility of choice. Like if they want to go XM Cloud, they should also choose the framework of their choice. And it could be Next.js nowadays. Next.js is a great framework. I started learning that some time ago. I'm coming from the .NET world. I like Next.js. It's fine, but we cannot force the people to use that one. That's why we started opening up the whole space of supported frameworks. And the first one was .NET Core. I mean, you were involved into that, Rob. Like, it was a needed extension. It was needed out there. Like, people wanted to have a .NET Core one, and which is also great. It has its use cases like the good old .NET developer, like an affinity to Microsoft and Azure hosting, and all of those considerations taken to the play. But also that's not enough. Now and that's what this video is about, all the Angular support. And we now have the head start in Angular, and we know that people want and need that Angular framework support. And especially from the times of when I was still sales engineer, I saw the customer needs live and in action. It was like, yeah, we are totally fine to go Next.js because we have React developer, we have Next developer, we are good to go. We had the good old Sitecore .NET developer or just a .NET stack, which was also fine. Or most of the time out there, they were already on Angular and asked, okay, can we also go XM Cloud with Angular? Because it fits perfectly in our tech stack. And that's the reason. Those three were mainly asked in all our opportunities out there.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, I'm really happy to see more languages and frameworks get supported for XM Cloud. It's a good step forward. I guess, can we see this in action? Have you got someone to show us with Angular?
Yeah, sure. I will start with the GitHub. So if you start an XM Cloud solution, most likely you will start on our foundation head. It can be that you use our deploy app and just create a project, and then you were asked to use your own code or to start with our foundation solution. Now, our foundation solution is exactly this foundation head in here. So there are multiple ways to reach the point where you have the repository. I just show you the most manual one, so I can also dive into the code. Our foundation head, now diving in. If people already know that foundation head, it looks a little bit different. Already some time ago, we restructured it to be more like a front-end first approach. That's why we now structured it in authoring and head apps and the local container deployment. And I would like to deep dive into the head apps. So beside our Next.js starter, we now have SPA starter, so single page application. Exactly in here, we have our Angular starter. I won't dive into that anymore, like it is there. What I want to highlight is we have a rich documentation down here in the README. Like, okay, you can now clone the repository, have it up and running locally, like with all these commands, like the dependency installation, like building the application, starting the application, walk through how to deploy that into XM Cloud, like with our internal editing hosts, and also how you spin up a local running instance for your front-end first approach. I followed that guide. It was pretty simple, pretty intuitive to work like that. So I would also like to go directly into the code. Like that's Visual Studio Code. I will not code anything in Angular because I'm not an Angular developer, so it might look weird. So that's why I already prepared everything, and I'm just using the last command, start Angular. So by starting the Angular server, it will now run everything and prepare everything so the application can run on localhost 3000. So now you see the server is now listening on localhost 3000. That's exactly the point when we are up and running. Let me go back to my application or to my window where I want to go into the next steps. First step I would like to open, I will jump over. It's exactly the page on localhost 3000. I'm now reloading. So I had it open before because I tested something, which is fine. Now I reload it. You see, it's my Angular skate park application. So it's connected to XM Cloud. It's using content from XM Cloud, but my local rendering host. And looks pretty much like a standard skate park application. I could now start working in that, changing code, working the usual way. That's one thing we can clearly do with that. Another thing I would love to show now in the page builder. So the page builder is also working perfectly fine. You see that's my deployed instance of my Angular hat application. It's also using the same code base or the same content base like the Angular starter. And I want to highlight two things in here. The first thing is we recently released a feature that you can connect your pages or your page builder directly to your local instance. And Angular also fully supports that. So I can now choose localhost 3000. I click save and it is connected. You see it reloads and looks more or less the same because it's the same instance deployed, but it's now locally connected. So I can also work now against my pages or page builder editor to do my front end changes. That's a pretty nice and cool feature that we can see pages connected to our local host. But that's not all. I mean, XM Cloud has a lot of features. And another one I wanted to show is personalization. Personalization is crucial to XM Cloud. It's a pretty cool feature. You see this little icon. We have the homepage personalized. So I click on personalize and you see I have a default variant and a new visitor variant. If I click on the new visitor variant, what changes? So you see now these little extensions to my rendering boxes. And if I scroll down, you see one thing has changed. It's this rich text module or text module. It says hi new visitor. And the only condition underlying is that a visitor should be a complete new visitor. Then I'm showing this little text. You already have seen the standard one, so the non-incognito. I have already a session. Scrolling down, it is in the news. It's a standard one. But I have prepared a little bit. Let me open that one. It should be exactly this one. So localhost, but an incognito tab. So I just opened it a second ago. So it's the same content, but it is saying hi new visitor. So which demonstrate all the major capabilities of XM Cloud are fully supported, like personalization, ABN testing, localization, forms, and much more. Also, the WYSIWYG editor is fully supported with our metadata approach. So that's pretty cool and should accelerate your developer experience pretty much. Like you can immediately start working with your Angular.
That's awesome. I know you're having support for Angular in XM Cloud. It's going to make a lot of customers and partners very happy.
Yeah, hopefully.
So if anyone has any questions about Angular or the other SDKs for XM Cloud, what's the best way for them to get hold of you?
Yeah, you can open or you can go into the repository and just open discussions and issues there, directly there. We are actively watching that. You can just write me or anyone from the team an email, a Slack message, quite active on community. You can ask questions in the community. like in the headless channel, in the XM Cloud channel, we are actively monitoring that one. So that's best way to get in touch with that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me again, Christian. Hopefully we'll get to speak again soon.
Thank you.